All right, what's going on, everybody? It is community. That's what it is. It's community, community beacon. One of your humble co-hosts, Palm Beach Mike, and of course, I almost feel like we need music some kind of way. It seems.
Yeah, man. You know what? I'm gonna create some. I'm gonna create a new one for us. I had the team create a new one.
Well,
But
I
that's
mean, I mean, just now it seems pretty quiet today, and it's interesting. I'm hearing my son Paul. He's talking to himself in the background, but it just such a calm atmosphere right now. Like real calm, real grounded. On the other side of the screen, we got my brother from another mother, the Joe Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what it was? I didn't do the applause. So let's do it one more time. That is my brother, Palm Beach Mike, the business mogul.
Is that what it
Ah, yeah.
is? Oh, now we can get it started.
I feel better now. I feel better now.
I am so grounded right now. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
good, man.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it was the pineapples I had earlier. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I'm extremely grounded. So I think this is going to be, not a thing I know. I know we're going to have an awesome show, guys. Last
What was
week,
your workout today?
oh man, it was incredible. It was leg day. I'm comfortably at 275 for reps on the squat. And I
Mm,
mean, it just felt real strong. No knee problems. Knock
mm.
on right? All thanks to the Most High. The knee problems because I had this knee thing where you just you feel that pain. I think it's more mostly mental than anything, more mental than anything. But man, it felt good. I was giving people tips. A young lady was in there working out with her daughter, and I was like, well, because she reminded me when I was working out with Elijah, she was putting the weight on. And I'm like, you can't just get us, your daughter all this weight. Let's just work on this form first. Because I saw it in the young lady's eyes. Her daughter, she was just like, "Come on, mom, you got me. I know you could squat 135. But I'm about half your size. I mean, if she weighed 90 pounds, it was a lot, and you got her doing these complex movements. And I was like, well, let's just sit down and practice on your form. Keep your hands out in front of you. And if you want to go lower, put some weight up underneath your feet. And then you can focus on your quads. You go focus on your hamstrings. And she was like, oh, yeah, yeah, thank you. I said, yeah, well, I had the same thing with my son. We just want to put the weight on, not understanding how important the form is and to
Mm.
focus on what it is that you're dealing with. Once you get that, then you keep it moving. And he asked me how my workout was. How was yours, brother? Did you get a chance to work out today? I know I saw you yesterday lifting all that weight. Couldn't get any weight in the gym because Joel was there. So I'm gonna make sure from this point moving forward that I don't that I find out when he's going to the gym. That way, when I'll go at a different time, so that I'm able to use some of the weight around there. Especially we're both working on the same. I think it was chest day for both of us, and I couldn't find any weight. So I was just, kind of doing body weight stuff while the brother was, you know, even and hoeing and moving around. And I'm just like, I can't. Let me go do some cardio or something. Yeah, yeah. But it's always a pleasure to see the brother in the gym, exchange embraces. I think I love how we embody that, right? Like when we see each other and we just embody the love that's actually there, right? It's I always enjoy that.
Yeah, man. 100%. 100%. If I hadn't been on a meeting that morning, that was, man, it seemed to go on for a while. For a while. I think I might have been on that thing. I didn't leave that day. That was a 2 hour, nearly a 2 hour workout day. I haven't done one of those in a while. And I'm not talking about 2 hours of talk. I'm talking about I'm pushing through the conversation. Like, you got to hear the grunts because if you're gonna be there with me, I can't talk and not breathe and all. No, you just got to hear it. And so it was a good conversation, but I was glad to see you, man. And I was so glad that we were able to talk
Mhm.
afterwards because
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, I was missing that. I was like, gosh, man, I hadn't been in here for an hour and 45 minutes, almost 2 hours, and he's gone now. And like, whenever I see you, it's like, I feel like that means that we're supposed to work out together. So I just like, I felt like I missed that opportunity. But nonetheless, I got the opportunity for us to have a really deep conversation afterwards, which was really good. Not surprising. I felt like we should have recorded that conversation and just aired that. That I mean, we was going forward, and today I did legs, but I didn't see you.
I had to pick up Paul, so I was at the one in Port St. Lucie. So
That's
yeah, I could be why. Yeah, they just opened up maybe about I think last month, right? So and that was one of the big reasons why I joined. I was like, well, they're gonna have one over there. Then on the days I pick him up, I can just go there early and get that workout in prior to picking him up. So I was in Port St. Lucie this morning. So that's why we didn't bump into each other. But we did
okay.
have an awesome conversation. Like we're about to have one now. So and allowing you all to join in on it. In this world filled with surface level combos and just surface level thoughts, we dive deep, and I don't think today is going to be any exception to what we normally do. And I'm excited. And that was when you sent me what we were going to talk about today. It was interesting to me because I'm like, okay, well, we jumping into silence already. We kind of alluded to it last week, but you skipped one of the lessons because we went from lesson. I saw lesson one initially. That's what we did last week, and you skipped to lesson three, which was silence. I said, "Oh, something must be on the brother's mind." And so let's jump into it, brother. Let's get started. I'm curious to understand what made you skip lesson two, well, which was lesson two. It didn't necessarily have to be, but going to lesson three, which is the weight of silence. The weight.
I'll tell you what, the weight of silence is, I believe, is just a deep concept. I think it's more than a concept. I shouldn't even say it that way. The weight of silence is heavy because it gives people power, and I think that the room should be shared. The power should be shared, especially when you are communicating. When we're communicating with other people, it's not a control thing because we're communicating. I recall scripture said, "Come now, let us reason together." See, I think about that because I already know when I think about that scripture, if I'm going to reason with my Father in heaven, I realize in my mind, he's already right. In my mind, that's how I read. That's my rationale. He's already right. So why is he inviting me to come and reason with him if he's already got the answer, right? If he's the first, the last, the alpha, omega. He's all that is already without me. So what reasoning will we be doing? And then I thought about it from a different plane. When I request my children to come and speak with me, I am requesting them to come and reason with me, and not at the same level of the Almighty, but I generally already know what is going on inside of their world, whether they know it or not. But I want to take time to reason with them, to come to an agreement, to communicate, to allow their words to penetrate the atmosphere. I need them to understand that it's not about being right or wrong. It's about having the courage, the tenacity, the mindset to first begin the conversation, to come into the conversation, to walk into the room, to come into the presence, to be a part of this design for future references and for future life, to be a part of what we are developing now together. And it doesn't matter right or wrong, it just matters that we communicate. And I believe in that moment that they are communicating, I have a austere ability to show the power of silence.
I love it. I love that you brought up that verse. Maybe a year or two ago, I mentioned my mother, and I remember she always used to say, they call me Jewy. She'll say, Jewy, come let come let we reason together. Right? That's how she used to say it to me. And when it was like above, like I'm gonna tell you something, like in her infinite wisdom, she wasn't saying I'm gonna tell you. So she said, let me reason with you together. And what that allowed for, like you just mentioned, brother, was allowed for me to speak a part, uh, and allowed for the space, right? The silence brings about this space. And last week you spoke about your daughter, and you had a conversation with her, and you allowed the space for her. I don't remember the exact saying, but she said something about what you allow. What was the saying that you mentioned you spoke to her about? And her quote was like, what you allow.
Oh, yes,
It was
yes.
something super super wise, right?
If
Like,
you don't change, you choose.
what you don't change, you choose. So even just in that example that you gave, and then now that you're bringing up reason, I remember that's something that my mother used to do with me as well. Was she explicitly said, "Hey, just let me come reason with you," especially if I was in one of my moods, right at the time. She said, "Just come, let's reason together." And I, as a grown man, she was telling me, "Let's reason together." So the silence allows the space. And I was reading the Quran, and I was really, and this is like one of my favorite books now. And the Prophet, well, this is the hadith of it. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, if a person is given silence, they're given wisdom. And I it's just the space of it. And I wanted to start off with my thought process in regards to the silence, is that because I want to make the distinction, is that it's not always wise, and it's not always neutral. And it's interesting that you brought, because I was like, I don't, when you sent this off to me, I was like, well, this is interesting that we're starting here, because last week we kind of just spoke off the cuff about this series that we'll be doing for the next couple of months, and for us to jump right into silence, because I see silence as a tool, right? Like it's a tool that can be used like a hammer, and you can either build with it or you can use it to destroy things. And just like any other tool, like if it's a hammer, you don't necessarily need to use it when a screwdriver will do. Like I remember someone saying that. So the silence isn't necessarily the answer to everything, because sometimes we do need the right words. We can use the right questions. We can, in regards to the right conversations, having the right conversations. But how silence has showed up in my life is definitely with like self-control. There's times when I wanted to speak, and I intentionally had to be silent to listen, to gain clarity. That's my intention of all conversations now, which is change. Before I used to want a result. Now I want clarity. Clarity is the result for me. Silence can be disinterest, right? Silence can be powerful. Silence can bring about peace. And it also can be a sign of frustration, shut down, and checking out. I remember I heard someone say recently that the way that a lot of men tend to express themselves when they're uh, when they feel a certain kind of way, when we're in our feelings, is to shut down. I ain't got much more to say. I'm j- I'm done with it, right? In frustration. So when we talk about silence, um, the question is like, what's the intention behind it? We spoke about intention last week because silence with intention is presence, but silence without clarity could just be avoidance.
Mm. Mike, so I'm a fan of kung fu movies. I, I know that you know that. But I I like the old school Wu Tang Clan, and I started to like some of the newer series because they're up to date. They're up to date. I think it's called Ping Pong. That's about as far as I go. I don't like mystical dragons and cartoons and stuff like that. But when these guys jump through the trees and they run on the trees, oh man, that thing is so cool. But there's a few of them. I think Shadow, if I if I remember correctly, Shadow may be one of those shows right now that you can go and check out. And it's about a warrior and he's silent. Another one has Tom Cruise in it. It's called The Last Samurai.
I think that might be your all-time favorite movie.
It is. I think I mentioned it so many times. I have mentioned it so many times. There's just so much that I've learned in watching that movie. So when we start talking about silence as a strength, what I know about that is that, especially for a man, silence gives us opportunity to be the strength, to show up as the strength. The funny thing about this is that in our culture nowadays, I'm finding that there are those people who are now believing or beginning to see or speaking to the same that they thought the person that spoke the most in the environment was the one who had the most money, the one who was the most prominent figure, the one insert super adjective. Now, some people are saying it's not that one, it's the one that's silent, that's observing everything that is happening. When we take the time to utilize our silence, as you stated, powerful versus shut down, peaceful versus checked out, we have the opportunity to listen, hear, and I use both of them, right? Because one of them is more about everything that is going on, and the other one is more about focusing on what is going on. And when we become silent, we get the opportunity to do both. Silence gives us that power to actually heal because we can absorb the words that are being spoken. And instead of reacting, we can respond with education, with knowledge, with wisdom. And the wise part about this is that being the last one to speak allows us to know what everyone else is thinking. I'll give you one short story as an example. I may have shared this with you before. This was an opportunity for me that, in my belief, I believe God had opened up my understanding to my value at a new level. And you and I have been talking about value for a couple of days now. I went into a men's group. This men's group was filled with people who I perceived, this is a judgment, I perceived, I never said that I'm absent of them, I perceived. Am I clear? We got clarity out there. I perceived that people's net worth was much higher than mine. And there's certain things that people say and do that help that conclusion come inside of your mind or inside of my mind. I knew everybody wasn't, but I definitely understood that there were many in that room that did or were. But I was there anyhow. I also had a perception that I had value to bring to the table. And the meeting had changed from its original source, which was gather men together and let us talk about certain things, to gather men together and have a hot seat. They performed this hot seat for the first time. And the person that brought me into the meeting was the first person to speak. When he spoke, I believed that I carried the answer to his situation. I thought, okay, I will speak now. Guy across from me speaks up first. Okay. Humbly. Next guy speaks up. Okay. Start writing things down, taking notes. I said, some of that is what I would say. Another guy gets up and speaks, and then they move to the next person. The next person is one who has organized this entire thing, and he speaks. I said, I can answer that. Guy across from me speaks. Another guy speaks. Then there was a moment of silence. And I raised my hand like I was a school kid. I said, I'd like to share something. Oh, yeah, go right ahead, Joel. What do you have to say? When I spoke, brother, I intertwined the answer for him, for the guy before him. And after I finished speaking, they said there's nothing else left to be said. And the meeting was shut down. The space that I took was enough for me to gather the bits and pieces from every single individual and to give a full answer. Brother, that wasn't simply knowledge. It was the capacity to utilize every single tool that was now on the table. Had I spoken first, there would have been no tools on the table. And I would have had to bring every tool to the table. And that's almost like being a psychic. But because I waited, first, I was forced to wait. Not forced, but I chose to wait because I didn't want to over talk somebody else. But lastly, I chose to wait because I realized my opportunity simply had not come yet. It was in that moment that I'm looking at these multimillionaires and I'm saying to myself, I understand, Lord. I get it. I get it. was a powerful lesson for me, but I had the opportunity to impact so many. And silence, that was my superpower that day. Because there was nothing that I said that I wouldn't say right here in this space with us.
I love you how you mentioned my opportunity had not come yet, because the silence allowed for the space for the opportunity to be there. I think oftentimes, and I've had this discussion with my father. My father, now he blames everything on like his old age, right? So he's like, oh, I'm 70, so that's why I have to speak, because if I don't speak, then I'm gonna forget it. That's what he'll tell me. And I say, well, this is one of, if y'all listened last week, you understand I like, it's my job to bother him, right? That's one of the responsibilities I've taken on. And I told him, I said, listen, I said, maybe what you have to say isn't really that important. Maybe the spirit doesn't really want you to say these things. It's not the time for it to happen, right? But he says he has to speak. Hey, having a father is a cheat code.
I
But
love it.
I took that, um, I took that me messing with him, but there was a lesson to be learned in that, is that with the wealth of knowledge that we have, right, and the experiences that we don't necessarily need to just give it all out at the same moment, just based on the because we have the content. The context matters. And for us to step into a room and observe first to gain the context of the situation and what's being said, and then waiting for our opportunity, if it even comes, right? There's times when, and I'm sure this has happened to you, where you wanted to speak up, and or there was a desire, but you weren't given the opportunity. The opportunity simply wasn't there, and it was fine just the way that it was, because it was perfect the way that it played out. But if you not forcing anything and just allowing it to unplay for yourself, I always tell my son Elijah, I say, take 5 seconds before you answer me. I don't care what I'm asking you. Just let's just be quiet for 5 seconds and then respond. I don't know if he's doing that well at it, but I understand that it helps. That's something that helps me out. If I take 5 minutes to respond, 5 seconds to respond, sometimes it's even longer than that. I'm sure people are like, why are you so, I get that all the time. Why are you so quiet? I got to really process what exactly we're saying. We spoke earlier. It says it allows, because when you get that pause, this is high emotional quotient, EQ, and Joel has that. When you take because I know what I want out of the conversation. Right now, it's clarity. It used to be results, but it's clarity. And so whatever it is, I understand my intention, right? Because I'm coming to this conversation with purpose. I have an intention for it. Otherwise, we're not even gonna there's nothing to talk about, right? I can just move past that. I don't necessarily know what the other person's intention is. I don't know what it is. It could be possibly to persuade me, to influence me. It could be to vent. It could be to add information, add context. There's so many different things. If I get a chance to hear what they have to say and add the context to it, then we can figure out where we can align within this conversation. That's the opportunity to align with this conversation at times, and take it to the next level. Or you can say, wait a minute, I'm over here looking for clarity and results when there really isn't any, right? At that point, this is the clarity that I'm getting from it, is that this person wants to vent. This person wants to tell me something. So if I understand that, then there's really no need for me to input anything, because at that point, the conversation may just be disingenuous. What are we talking about? I think about some triggering conversations that we've had or we've seen recently. Politics is always one, right? If this person is a staunch Republican and they perceive you to be a Democrat or on the other side, or they're trying to convince you, there's really almost nothing for you guys to say, right? Because this person's not budging. You have your own thoughts about the situation, but this person just wants to unload something, right? And no matter, even if you give them like, well, that's not necessarily true, because add filler here. This add facts here, rather. Here are the facts. It doesn't matter, because that's not where this person is. So that ability to use silence to gain context to something, and if there's an opportunity, right? Shouts out to Dre. Dre always says, "Thank you, Holy Ghost." If there's a time for the opportunity to arise, and you're prompted, right? You're given this word, or heck, I think we often are given this silence. We're given this thing, then we can move accordingly, as opposed to adding to the noise that may, we're adding to the confusion, rather. Not just, I wouldn't necessarily say it's noise, but we could be adding to the confusion of a thing. So I love that story, brother.
That was good, man. That prompted. Oh man, you really made me think about something. I'm searching it. Because when you first started off with that comment that you stated, you said, don't give it all out just because we have the content. So simply because I know something about something doesn't mean that I should share anything. That is a very good lesson to learn. Like, that is something right there. Somebody needs to put that as a caption somewhere, especially in these days when there's so many, all you need to know is these three things. It's never these three things. It just isn't. I mean, knowing these three things may help you, but there's always three more. For each one, there's probably another three. And for each one of those three, there may be another three. The rabbit hole goes deep. So when we're in the middle of these conversations, it's about being humble, because we're communicating. And I believe sometimes we forget that as people, as the human race, as people. It's forgotten. Now, there are some people that are very intentional. Mike, I know you're a very intentional man. Very intentional. I'm a very intentional man myself. I don't like to say it if I don't mean it. I don't want to proceed in that pathway. And if I misspeak, I like to be the first one to call myself out.
Amen.
I like to do that within the same sentence. Here's the power in this silence thing. Again, give your brain time to think. The power in the 5 seconds that you teach Elijah. That's so powerful, especially at his age. Because that's when we began to form who we will be for the rest of our life. I mean, you are imparting so many gems into Elijah. I'm doing the same thing with Jonah. And it's not that I won't give it to my older children. I will. It's simply that the time frame of them being 15, whew, We're talking about concrete thought processes are starting to happen inside of their mind. And people may say, oh, you got time, you got time. Friends, please understand, if your children are beyond the age of 13, they are working on the pillars of their life. If you're not helping them to shape those pillars, they are going to walk in to young adulthood with those pillars. They are going to build their life with those pillars. And they will not realize whether those pillars are good or challenging until they turn about 27. That's 9 years from 18 that they will be walking with something that is either good or challenging, either solid ground or sinking. And the narrative of that is on parents first, and the support system that has groomed them. So if we were to take this lesson of communication back home, parents, we need to take 5 seconds before we react. And we need to start responding. The older our children get, it's almost as if you do a little less parenting and a little more coaching. The world is shifting. Our children are learning exponentially faster than we were. And I'm not talking about education that is being poured out through the system. I'm talking about of living life. They're exposed to what is happening in China, in India. They're exposed to what is happening in Hawaii. They're exposed to what is happening in Russia. They're exposed to what is happening in Chicago. When before they had to watch the news, and what child wanted to watch the news? Man, cut that off. I'm going to my room to play. I'm going outside to hang out with people. Now that stuff is showing up on their Instagram feed. Rest in peace, Mr. Kirk. But my son saw him murdered. I haven't even seen that. If we think for one moment that the conversation is not reaching our children, we are blind. And like my brother on the other side says, if you hear what I'm saying, from this point on, you are willfully blind. You are choosing not to acknowledge. This is something I don't think you need to be silent on. But if the only words that you can use are going to be disdainful, disheartening, non-contributing words, then silence is the key for you, and take them to somebody else who can explain it. Sometimes it's more powerful to allow somebody else to explain it than to explain it in a way that puts somebody in a pit.
That's big, brother. That's big. So for me, I was chewing through. I had a conversation with a brother, and he kept saying for me, and I was like, "We're not you're gonna stop putting your sauce on it." Yeah, and so now I've picked it up. So for me, here it is. And I'm gonna use listen to this phrase. The fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is that, and I would I don't know if the brother necessarily agrees, is that the primary in anything is just obedience and submission. And there's times when we do need to say things, and and this is why I'm learning, how to communicate it correctly, because words do have impact and power, right? They have the power to open or close doors. So there's times when we do need to have that conversation, whether in our minds we're ready for it or not, right? Like, I know these aren't the perfect words, and maybe we could preface with that, like, these aren't the perfect words, and I want you to know, I'm sure we've all had this conversation with our elders, is like, I'm just gonna let you know because I love you. I'm doing this because I love you, right? So I know it may come out sounding a certain kind of way, but there is just something that I have to say. And the primary is the obedience and the submission. Okay. Um, and up underneath, and after that, brother, because you were speaking in regards to, let me have some silence on how I think about it. The secondary would be like the empowerment, right? The words that I'm saying, because I want to choose words to empower. And it starts off with this intentionality that we have, or lack thereof, because I think sometimes we're not, I spoke as initially as silence being a tool, um, and we can use it not knowing exactly how we're using it, right? Because if I'm silent because I'm avoiding you, like, that's not wisdom. If I'm silent because I've shut down, that's not wisdom. If I'm silent because I don't know what to say, that's not wisdom either. That's really just being passive. And ultimately it's a weakness. What we're talking about is mastering this tool of silence, where silence comes from discipline. Silence lets you, this is powerful, reflect before you speak. Last week we say our words have worlds. So depending on what we speak, if we are silent and we are able to gather our thoughts, it and understand from where we're coming from, especially if we're talking about our family or our kids, how much weight it is that we have. Because kids have always, and I wouldn't even, when we talk about the schooling and so on and so forth, like, that's always been there, and it's been impactful, but it starts at home. And so you mentioned some ages. So from 0 to 7, it's foundational. What exactly are these kids hearing from 0 to 7? Right. And then we start to get into adolescence, from 8 to, um, essentially our brains aren't fully formed. Neuroscience says until we're 25. So what exactly are we building? What kind of words are we instilling? How are we empowering our children with the words it is that we have? So the weight, it allows you, there was a time when you couldn't even speak God's name because there was weight attached to it. There was reverence attached to it. So if we understand that and we take these, and Lord knows, this is a work in progress for me personally, because I came up where you just, like the brother spoke earlier, like, you had to speak out or you had to talk louder. It just seemed like this is how we were kind of raised in this kind of environment. But as we grow older, now that we're 26, 27, in our 40s, so on and so forth, we understand the weight of the words we had. I remember having a conference with Elijah's teacher when he was I think he was in the first grade. And this was a parent student conference. I remember sitting down, and I remember the teacher she was just about to retire. right? She's been in the school system for 20 plus years, so on and so forth. But you can, you looked at her, he's like, well, yeah, it is time for you to retire. Like I remember her sending us a text message or email about the kids misbehaving during lunchtime and how she was going to discipline them. I'm like, well, I don't necessarily know if this was, you need to reach out to us to let us know that you're going to not allow them to go to the playground or whatever it was. But she had just reached her rope. And I understand, like, number one, as a black male in school, it's not really meant for boys, right? To sit down for 8 hours and just tune in, right? It's we know that now. And I remember talking to his teacher and I said, listen, this kid is in the first grade. When you have conversations with him, all I need you to do is not to have him be dejected about coming to school. Right? Like, just don't deter him. That's it. Don't deter him because he has to come here anyways. I remember I said Elijah understood. Elijah used to count down the days until school was over. We have 97 days. We have 96 days. I'm telling the teacher, like, that I just don't want him to be deterred for coming to school. I don't want him to lose his steam, just not like wanting to be here, right? He's a boy, he's a black boy at that, so it's not really culturally exciting to him. So there's times when you know you don't necessarily need to pick and pick on a person for every little bit, because there's times for you just to take it in and understand the audience that you're dealing with, right? The silence allows us to listen deeper and see clearer. Mastery.
That's deep. Listen deeper, see clearly. That's deep. That's deep. Brother, last week you said something and I started thinking about it again. You said words have worlds. So does silence. Silence is a world of its own. It's a world of its own. It's a tool that needs to be used inside of communication. Needs to be. We don't want to grow and think that every single time something is said, every word that is spoken deserves a response. All words do not deserve responses. And all words definitely don't deserve reactions. This was something that you brought to my heart when you were speaking, and I'll explain it. So just bear with me, friends out there. 1 Peter 3:15. But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asks of you of the reason of the hope that lies within you, right? With meekness and fear. Why did I give that? Well, I want to use that as an analogy. Dr. Terrell said, you're speaking truth to power, Mike. Appreciate that, Dr. Terrell. So I wanted to use that as an analogy. Um, to sanctify the Lord God in your hearts means to clean out your heart and only have space for Him. So when we start thinking about words that we're using, we should take the time of preparation. So going back to the lessons that we are intentionally giving to our children, or the conversation that we are having with our significant other, or the communication that we are using to speak with our bosses or our partners or our sponsors or our clients or our customers, whatever that is, we should take time to actually place something inside of us to give. This is why a reaction is not deemed or necessary, but a reaction is given because many of us have not prepared for the conversation. I'll give an example. $15, 14 years ago, something like that. Maybe 15. I was talking with my wife, and I told my wife, I said, we need to start talking to our daughter about sex. I wanted her to do it. I'm like, she's a girl. You're a girl. Doesn't this make sense? First child. So I could feel it. I'm intentional. I'm watching my children. I'm paying attention to what's going on. I'm paying attention to what's happening in the schools. We need to have this conversation. Nah, it's too early. Might have been 16 years ago. It's too early. But whenever it happens, you do it. I came out, it might not have been that day because this was a long time ago, but I came out of the room and I see her sitting there and I felt something just like tapping me in my chest and inside my mind. Talk. That's when I realized they were already talking with my daughter about sex in school. And they were giving their narrative on what it meant to be a couple. If we don't prepare ourselves for these opportunities, when the opportunity shows up, we may not even know it's time for us to speak. We have nothing to say. Silence is also an awesome use of observing the time. You can observe what is going on in your space, in your world, by being silent. It's like this. How many people really are thinking while they're speaking? It can be difficult. That can be a challenge. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but many times by the time you start opening up your mouth to start a sentence, you just keep going and going and going until you think the thought is over with. How many times have we been there? And after we finish talking, we say, I could have said something else. But when we go silent and we think about all the things that we could say, we don't always say them exactly how we think, but we have some space there to actually curate the words that we are about to use. So it may not come out exactly as is, but most likely it'll come out better because we've already dealt with the material first. That's why I gave that scripture. Sanctify your hearts. Prepare your hearts for the hard conversations. When I talk to my guys, when they call me up, this is one of the things that I teach them. You're upset in the moment in this relationship and you can't get past it because you're inflamed. You're hurt. She's hurt. Everybody's hurt. There's a saying, maybe it's true. Hurt people hurt people. Doesn't have to be that way. Just because you're hurt doesn't mean you need to hurt anybody. But if you haven't prepared, so my leader would tell me this. mentor, leader. He's passed now. He would tell me this, and I took it to heart and I use it in everyday life. You knew the time was coming. Why didn't you prepare? All that time you had to meditate, to think about it, to separate yourself, and you were sitting there playing Candy Crush. All right, I'm done.
Hey, listen, you know when silence is so useful is when you have the time and space and presence to actually utilize it. When we're talking about mastering the skill, you said what your mentor said, and it's interesting because I'm a part of a program and they brought in the speaker, and I spoke about the speaker last week, and this is just, I just know I'm gonna tell you how crazy it is. First off, shouts out to Chris Seville. Chris just had a boy, a young baby boy born yesterday. You know,
yeah. Hold on, man. Let me get my media up. Let me get my media.
The born yesterday, and Seville clan is getting bigger. Shouts out to the Seville. What was that?
That was a gong for the Seville clan getting bigger.
Shout out to Seville clan getting bigger. Chris had a baby boy, and he told me, healthy, mother healthy, So yesterday I asked him, what's the name? Because he didn't tell me the name. And then this morning he said it's Samuel. And I said, let me tell you something. I'm in the book. I'm in 2 Samuel's now, but I'm in the book of Samuel. What are the odds? So I love when I get those type of synchronicities, because it's like the Most High is pointing me in that certain direction. But I digress. The mastering of the moment piece. And this is not, we often have the saying, what is it? Expect the worst, but hope for the best. What are we doing with our time and our silence? Why are we so afraid of it? To where, and there's nothing wrong with Candy Crush. I used to be a Candy Crush fanatic back in the day. I got a new game now that I play. But there's times when I'm taking a drive and I'm not putting anything on. I'm not calling anybody. It's just me and the humming of the car in thought about mastering this moment. What is it? What am I going to say if this is presented in this kind of way? What's my response would be? Because if I'm starting to think on these things, I kind of get an understanding of what to expect. We're raising children. We're going to have this conversation, whether it's about sex, whether it's about relationship, whatever it is, these things are going to be happening. So we have to start to be thinking on these things, especially based on our values. I spend time, I'm in the gym sometimes, and I'm thinking about, like today, how am I going to greet Paul? I said it last week, and I did it again today. How am I going to greet him? Well, if he doesn't want to leave, I'm going to do it this way. If he's ready to leave, how do I show him that, this is a welcoming and open environment? I want to get to the point. I am so intentional about these different things that, yes, they're going to go on the outside and have these conversations that I may not necessarily, what the schools want to tell them, but I want to be so open and welcoming, and they know that I'm here to listen, that they come back to me and say, well, Dad, this happened. This is what they told us, right? I remember my teacher said, that was Elijah's favorite thing. My teacher said, and I got to listen to everything the teacher says. I got to acknowledge what the teacher says. I have to say, I can totally understand how the teacher can come up with this thought process. Well, let me give you a tip. Let me show you something. If it needs to be shown, like I'm not just out here just to, be in total, be the devil's advocate and be in opposition of whatever the schools are teaching, but I do want them to be exposed to things, especially if I know it. Because what's the point of me having this information and this knowledge if I can't share it with the people that I know and love, right? But just preparing for it. So I spoke about having this conversation with Phil Collins, who just talks about the same thing that your mentor spoke, or your you said your, what did you say, brother? Your mentor, or
Yeah,
your
I use the term mentor,
your leader,
leader.
right? Who spoke on this thing is about taking the time to master the moments, right? Like just master. We spoke about it last week, mastering the moments, and this doesn't necessarily mean that it's I need to say something. It could just be taking it in. Man, all praise the Most High. This week has been interesting because I spoke about Dre talks about the salting, and we're in this regards we'll talk about the lessons learned, because I had a week where it was a repeat of a lot of things, and it was like the Most High said, well, did you learn your lesson? Well, let's see you do it. Let's see how you handle these things. The majority of it was handled in silence. I didn't need to. I was prompted. I felt the different, things come up, feelings, whatever they may be, emotions come up, and it was just like, just hear this out. Completely sit in this and hear this out. And I just sat there and I've just felt these emotions that it wasn't like this hasn't happened before, right? Because the first time I failed. I would say I failed, right? I became aware of it. Like, wait a minute. This is a pattern, sir. Right? Do you have to say something? No, it was like, okay, the emotions came up. Let me see clarity. How do you first start seeking clarity? I'm not interrupting. Let someone talk. Let them talk it out. Okay, they talked it out. Okay. Well, let me really get a clear understanding of what's going on here. All these emotions are coming up. All these emotions are prompting me to continue in the same direction that I've been going. But guess what? I'm going to have to repeat this thing, right? Because this, to me, in my mind, and I'm so grateful for it, is like it's a test. Like he, the Most High is like saying, let me see what, I'm allowing this. Let me see where you at with it. And it's just like, well, what? Because you keep saying it. Like, is it a theory? Is it just in theory? Well, let's see what this looks like in practice. Right? It's just this thing that we was, and just being grateful to be aware of it. I don't know, brother. It might have been you. I don't know if it was you or someone else, where I was just like, just the being grateful and joyful in the awareness of this thing. It wasn't the most pleasant thing. It wasn't meant, we don't mean it to be pleasant, but it's just like, well, you keep talking about it, show and prove then. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, show and prove. Like, is this what you, and just to be aware of it, just like, oh, this is okay. I totally understand it. I don't want too many of these things to continue happening, but in this moment, this is what we talk about. And then to understand, like, it's almost like you're graduating to the next level kind of deal. Like, now I just feel like it's a graduation, because it was just like you passed this test that I'm giving myself, so to speak. So it's like the master of we talk about it. You're hearing us. If you're listening to this, Joel and I speaking about it, become aware of these things, the 4 A's that we speak about, right? Become aware of these things, acknowledge these things, accept these things, make the adjustment, like it, or alignment, and then adjust, right? Like, because we always want to bring it back into the alignment. It's a beautiful thing, because now you can kind of or rather, we spoke about this yesterday, we increase our capacity. Like, this is now, it's like increasing your capacity for these things that we're going through. There's nothing like increasing your capacity like silence. Think about this. If someone is in front of you cussing you from A to Z, and you are in silence while this is going on, and they might be saying some stuff that because maybe they know you, right? Like they know I'm gonna poke this button, I'm gonna poke this button. I know he's not gonna like this, he or she's not gonna like this, whatever, and you just in silence. Okay. Ah. Now the first time it happens, you might just get up and walk away. Right? Like the first time, but that's increasing your capacity because before it might have been, oh no, I'm not gonna let this happen. You're not gonna talk to me like this. You know what I mean? Like we might start engaging we start feeding this animal, right? Now we're feeding, and this is the response. Now we say, you know what? The first time we're gonna walk away from it. The second time we're gonna give them the okay. The third time we might just like and you just graduating to the point till now you just acknowledging, okay, you ran out of steam. This person ran out of steam, and then gain clarity from it. Like now you can sit in it, and you can turn this a different kind of way. I'm not saying it's going to happen the first time. This silence and understanding how to maneuver in the way that we do it, for me personally, it took focus and effort, which it's translated into time. It took some repetition because the first time it was like, oh, this is whoa, who, these are fighting words that we dealing with here. It might just be better if we just go straight to it, right? Like I'm acknowledging that. And then and this is maturity. This is connection. Because ultimately that's where we want to, that's what I call growth, right? For me personally, is to become more mature and more connected, right? While all this is going on and and in order to have that, you got to be grounded. But we're just getting to the point of it. So it might take you, they say it's between 29 and 50 some repetitions. Who want to be cussed out that many times? I'm just saying that it's going to take this focus and effort, and you can actually do this in your mind. This is when we start talking about how to master these moments. This is happening in our mind. We're replaying it and looking for the outcome it is that we would want, a favorable outcome, right? Whatever the favorable outcome is. So we can do that, and then we put it into practice and experience. And what Drake calls the salting period. This is a chance for you to study and improve. And I'm telling you, this week was perfect for it. Well, this week was perfect.
Tell me more about how it was so perfect for it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I mean the conversations that I was having. People not paying. This is National Landlord Week, right? So this is the first of the month. Everybody, we starting to get into October. The economy is doing what the economy is doing. I used to pay, my dog eats straight raw chicken, right? So Chalky's 4. When I first got Chalky, the chicken at Walmart, the leg thighs that I buy were $4.59. No, actually, I found them at Walmart for $4.59. They are now $6.70 something cents, right? I just went in there, and this is just one of the things that pop up in my mind. I personally, I'm not gonna say it out loud because they might change the price on it, but we know what's going on. I know what's going on. I get a chance to see, the money and so on and so forth. So I know what's coming up with rent as well, because I manage some properties, and I understand what these tenants are doing, and I would like to get paid on time, please. I'm showing up, and and you've had a house over your head, and you want it for the next month. Let's make this exchange. But then when I show up, there's either excuses or there's wanting stuff done. Even today was interesting. I had to tell a client or a tenant, I said, listen, we got 2 separate issues here. You want this thing fixed, and the rent is increasing, right? You want to conflate these issues, but they're not really conflated. We can, but if we do that, it's not necessarily going to be favorable for you, right? But I've had hundreds of tenants. I understand these conversations are coming, right? I understand what's going on with the economy. I understand that this is going to be interesting conversation. It's October, December is going to be worse because Christmas is coming up, and I know you all, we want to spend. Or January is even worse because we didn't spend what we didn't have on during Christmas. I know this. I had hundreds of tenants. I've been doing this for over a decade now. For me to show up and get into a verbal altercation with someone because they don't have the money, right? I'm already past that. 12 years ago, you caught Mike fresh and fresh or whatever. And first, it was I was accepting the excuses. I'm gonna give you the exact time graduation. It was you coming up with excuses, right? And I accepted them, right? Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then it was like, oh, I done heard these excuses too far in between. I know you got it. You know this time is coming up. What are we doing? I'm putting this 3-day notice on your door. That was like the second graduation. Then I was like, okay, Mike, what do you do? Like, what are these conversations? You need to have clear and concise conversations. And for the tenants, because I'm not just, my heart ain't in the freezer, right? I'm not just straight cold hearted. Maybe I need to prompt this person maybe a week ahead of time. Hey, listen, what are we looking like for Friday? Or, whatever day I'm picking up the first. Like, what are we looking like? Oh, yeah, Mike, I'm fine. Okay, everything's good. Maybe just a pop by for me to, hey, is everything, text message. Hey, everything is great, Mike. Because now when I show up, if I'm showing up to pick up the rent, it's not all these excuses. Oh, well, this happened 2 weeks ago or three. No. Because I asked you a week ahead of time. Like there's certain things that you start to put into place, and it becomes and it can become preventative. So you don't even have to go through a lot of these different things. This person is going to cuss you out. They've been cursing you out for however long. I'm going back to that example. We know this person we know this person to be this person. This is the identity that they've chosen. However, for whatever reason, we're engaging with this person, because you could choose just not to engage with this person. But hey, maybe this is a family member. Maybe there's someone that you really love. You just know that they have this way of being. Or when they start doing certain, maybe they drink. When they drink, it gets out of hand or whatever. Like, we know these things. I would say you start with preventative things. But then if you do have to experience, also master that moment of what it is exactly you have to experience. Right? They just getting belligerent. Okay, there's really nothing for me to say. Okay, I'll come check you out to whatever the case may be. But we have to, we get a chance to master the moment. Let's digress, going back to the silence and the weight of silence. And some tools, how we can use silence as a tool immediately. Immediately. I'm going to give you one of my quick processes. There's a lot of them. Toastmasters teach you some as well. So if you ever get a chance, I'm going to speak. I might speak on Toastmasters for the rest of the series. I'm going to end it with Toastmasters, because I think a lot of us need to join this group to see experienced and professional speakers just giving their speech, and for you to be able to use some of the tools that they use. But as far as the silence, before the words, right? Someone said something. Pause and check your intention. What are my intentions of this conversation? Maybe I want to influence this person. Maybe I want this person to be seen, to let them know that they're being seen. Right? There's a time for that. Maybe what is the intention? Maybe I need to gain clarity. I'm telling you, clarity would have saved a bunch of relationships for me. I want to gain some clarity. So we pause. I tell Elijah, and it's 5 seconds can seem like a very long time. That's 5 seconds. Like, it can seem like a very long time, especially if you're used to immediately having something to say. But let's start to practice. We're going to pause on the intentions. After we speak, Joel does this very well. Let the silence land so that the words have space to breathe. Give it space. I was having a conversation with someone recently. They were like, I'm going to allow the space for such and such, such. I said, well, how are you allowing the space when you got all these words and rules to go along with it? That don't sound like space. A person, when you allow space, you're allowing a person to be, hopefully to show that they can be vulnerable in that moment. Your words need that as well. The truth needs it. While you're listening, hold silence because people always reveal more when you don't rush to fill the gap. An awesome book to read is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss because he speaks to that. You don't have to say, tell me more. You don't have to say, unpack that. You'd be surprised how much how much more people have to say. Sometimes initially I'll even ask the question, right? I'll let it speak and they're like, what? Why are you so quiet? I didn't know if you were finished yet. I don't want to interrupt what it is that you have to say. Or I'm just really processing what it is that I'm really processing. It's heavy to me. A lot of people don't hear that. That allows them to know that you're actually thinking about what it is that they're saying. I do it because me and Joe have so many heavy conversations, and oftentimes, and if we're on the phone, it's like, well, that's heavy. So when it's heavy, I need to really have the weight. I want to feel the weight of it. I don't want to skirt straight past this. Whoa. Let me experience this. Because what we're using silence is to build something. We're building this conversation, this communication, this relationship.
Mm.
The silence gives the reverence for the person. You ever just been around someone that's just powerful? There's only a couple people I want to meet. And when I meet them, I'm not going to say anything. I don't necessarily want to ask any questions. I mean, I probably do want to ask some questions, but I just want to allow them. I want to give them the space to speak. There's some people that that are just powerful speakers. I just want to give them the space to speak. And I might not say anything. I might just go home in silence.
Mm.
Yeah, man.
You know that word that you use, that we use, that's heavy or that's powerful. I would employ others to use words like that also. Like you were mentioning, it doesn't have to be the same words when you were talking about split the difference. You should be natural in a conversation. We should all be natural. But there should be some cues that lets the person know that you are still there. There should be cues that lets people know I need to I need to think about what you said. I need to consider this. That hit me in some type of way. I'm not prepared to answer immediately. And also on the other end, right? Because there's a messenger as well as a receiver, we should be ready to give them the space that's it goes back to what is the purpose of the communication. What we've been discussing for the most part is positive, looking for a positive outcome. And we have given examples of some possibly negative ones. But if you're looking for a positive end, then we need to think on both ends of the spectrum. When that thing hits you in the face, and so maybe you didn't know this, but you know it now. When that thing hits you in the face, hey, give me a moment to sit with that. You may have to have a conversation ahead of time. Like you were saying, Mike, send that message out 1 week in advance. Or like I tell a bunch of people that are in relationships and they're having difficulty communicating. See, you communicate when things are high, not when things are low. If it's crashing and burning, it's time to put the fire out and to land alive. But when you're high and flying, it's probably a good time to mention one of those things that normally happens when you crash and burn. Don't wait till it's all crashing. So have the conversation. Hey, sometimes we're talking and you hit me with something so hard, I need time to think about it. I need time to think about it. And so when you tell them that, then you can tell them the other part about it. And what is the other part? Is when I say that, give me the space because you want the best outcome, right? They should be saying, yeah, I do. Well, because if you hit me off too quickly after I ask for the space, instead of a response, you may get a reaction. And you know, that could cause us to crash and burn. And I want us to fly high. So the communication is about letting people know who you are and how you will respond. So that you can empower them to understand how you are using the silence. Make a person that can use this as a tool a wise person. And it's just one more tool inside of the toolbox. Last week we talked about curating your words, speaking positively, being more uplifting. We talked about a whole lot of things about the way that we speak. We didn't even get into some of the things that the average person would talk about when they talk about speeches, tonalities, and everything. We didn't get into all that stuff. This was just a real conversation. Some people may say it was philosophical. Doesn't matter to me what you say. I think it was impactful. I think it was raw. I think it was real. And that's the way that we come off, is raw and real. And so using those 5 seconds, preemptively speaking about what may happen before it happens. If it's never happened, it is what it is. But why not set the tone so that if it does happen, you know exactly how to respond. Mm-hmm. And people understand how to respond to you. And that's what we want to do. The power of communication, what we are talking about, we're not talking about the converse, we're not talking about the talk, we're not talking about the silence, we're not talking about any of the rest of the stuff. Those are subjects of a theme. The theme is communication, the power of communication. These are all tools to make your communication more successful. So we take all this time to talk about silence so your communication can be more successful. If you want to have greater communication, you have to start studying communication. You have to become, Mike, you have said it so many times, we have to become masters of communication. This does not mean you need to go to school for it, but you may need to read a book. You may need to go see a specialist. You may need to go see a coach. You may need to go and meditate. You may need to go and pray. You may need to get from around certain people. There are a lot of things that may need to happen. And these things happen in the silence. They happen in between time. That's when it happens. It doesn't happen in the midst of it. It happens in the midst of the shout, the complain, or whatever's going wrong or going up or going down. It happens in between time. That's when it happens. So we're saying use that time, use that silence to. Mike got books all over the place. The man studies a book a week, probably 3 books a week. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I study too. I'm studying books. And, he just sent me a book today to listen to. It's like, but it's not. And he said it before, maybe about 15 episodes ago. I don't want this to be, like he didn't say a book report, but he said, I didn't want this to become a book club. Because we are talking about so many different references of different people. Because we got names of individuals who have influenced our thought process. Everybody does. Everybody's got it. Everybody got names of people that have influenced their thought process. So that's fine. It's good. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just we got to start using it.
It's funny you brought up books. Someone sent me a book today. I went to my mailbox. They sent it to me. It came from Barnes and Nobles. The young lady's name is Danielle, or I would imagine it's a young lady named Danielle. I don't know who it is. I want to say I appreciate it. I'm going to figure out who exactly you are. They sent me a real estate book, and I'm just like, what? And didn't leave any notes or anything. So first, if you're listening, I don't know if you're listening or whatever, but I appreciate it. I'm definitely going to take a look at it and read through it because I just thought it was interesting. You brought up the books. I'm just like, I just went to the mailbox and found a book someone sent to me today. I get a chance to check out. Listen, this communication is so important. It's so important. We've been practicing lazy communication. And I say lazy because what's going on now in the world is that the brother mentioned information is coming so fast and so hard. Things are changing at such a rapid pace. We haven't seen my dad talking, my old father, shouts out to Michael Sr. He's like, I don't think anybody's, he says, I don't think anybody my age should have this much change in their lifetime. like he's just telling you how fast this thing is, and he's in his phone like this, I'm looking. He's in his phone like this at all times. I said, man, if they shut off YouTube and WhatsApp, you in trouble because I don't think you know what to do with yourself. Like, where would you get your information from? Because the way that you on YouTube and WhatsApp, but it's changing and it's so rapidly, and our community, not just kids, our wives, our children, our partners, our husbands, if you're a female, you got a husband, your husbands, your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents are constantly being bombarded with things, right? And I have a mentor, James Rembert, shouts out to him because he's really on this AI. He has check out AI Fluency on Instagram. My first marketing coach, James Rembert, awesome guy. He has a saying. He says, the ignorant will always be abused.
Mm.
Uninformed will be abused. So it's happening so much. So if you have this information, you need to find ways to communicate it with the people around you that may not necessarily know these things are happening. They're not in the know. They don't understand financially, technologically wise, what they're teaching in school. How do I communicate these things and and the first point the brother brought up, and be able to reason with these people? Like me and my father, he doesn't want it to happen. he shouldn't have to experience this much change in a lifetime. But bro, Pops is here and I want you to live another 20, 30 years. So let's figure out how we work these things out. So I'm shooting stuff. Hey, that's AI, right? Nah, it can't be. It's almost like wrestling. Remember when they convinced you, told you wrestling was fake back in the day? It's like, there's no way. That's AI. This is not real. Try to get your information from here. This is what's going on. Like, how do we put our people in the house that way we're not left behind? There's a change happening. There's a change of the guard going on. You need to be able to communicate this, and you have to communicate it past a person's worldviews and identity, because people kind of think that it's one way and it may not necessarily be that way. So you have to be able to communicate to that. What prompted me to jump into communication so deeply? And I joined Toastmasters just out of this one thing. Thank the Most High that I was able to receive it. Tanisha Baker. Shouts out to Tanisha. I meant to send her a text message today to show her my appreciation and gratefulness in this. I was working at the city. Tanisha I was supervising her. She came from a different park and she came to our park. And I said something to her in my Michael's direct, matter-of-fact way. Like, it is what it is, my kind of way. And I remember she said something to the fact of, what you're telling me is not wrong, right? What you're telling me is not wrong, but the way that you're saying it, I can't receive it. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? In my mind, I said, well, what are you talking about? Like, if I'm telling you to jump out the way of the train, why you care how I say it? She said, listen, I'm just letting you know, right? That's what Tanisha told me, and her saying that is like, well, what you do with this information that I'm telling you is up to you, right? Because if you're really telling someone and you really want the outcome for them to get out of the way of the train, figure out the best way to communicate to them. That way they're not turning around and like, what you said or how you said it, and then they get hit, right? Because then the purpose of me doing it. So if you want these outcomes, you have to start to engage in these different things. This is what this communication is about. This silence, these tools, these subjects we're talking about, understand how to put them together and read these books, spend the time, master the moments, so that we can become better. The community can become better. You're not being left behind. Your family is not being left behind, right? The best that you can. We're not going to be perfect.
Best that you can.
We're not aiming for perfection, right? We're not aiming for that. We're just aiming for you to be as good as you personally can be. That's all we can be. Is as great as we can be, right? And honestly, I think this is a shortcut. I'm gonna tell you, to be honest. Me and Joe give you some shortcuts because we're bumping our head on every branch. I know I talked about myself. We bump our head on every branch going up this tree, and we turn around and saying, "Listen, learn from what we just went through." A lot of the stuff people are paying thousands of dollars in order to acquire, and because it seems simple because we're telling you how it is, right? It just seems simple, but people are paying thousands of dollars because otherwise you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. Mm-hmm. So you're welcome.
Maui. 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 We created a song. That's good. And we're using all of these different things. We're using it all. Because I still go to Mike because I he done bumped his head on some branches I ain't hit yet. Hey Mike, listen, was there an elevator after you hit?
Did you
You
care?
know we boys, man. You know we boys, man. Hey, throw
Did
the
you
ladder out,
care?
man. I see you already went up there. I saw your handprint up there.
I saw, I saw
I
the
need
blood,
help.
the blood dripped, but it's like that. Like, and the brother does the same for me. It's like, hey, listen, and it's some, some we don't really, you might have to pay for that, like to go beyond the wall. It's some really deep and vulnerable stuff that we deal with.
Yeah,
It's some really deep and vulnerable stuff. And when I looked around as I was going through these things, and I'm realizing that we're not really passing down these traditions in that kind of way, because there's certain things that we come across that we're like, come on. And you're looking around, you're like, well, who's going to give us this information? Right. One thing for me, as many people as I knew that went through family court that had a story to tell about it, and I reached out, they were just like, and I
nobody
was
did
like,
the research like you did.
yeah, I said, well, let's get to the nitty gritty of this whole thing. Let's really try to figure this out, right? Like let's do a deep dive into this thing, because now I'm able to have this information that I can just give out to people, whatever it is. So you understand and know what to expect and how to play, see what's going on in this system. One thing about systems that are effective, right? Effective systems are that they're slow moving because they don't necessarily need to be maintained. An effective system doesn't necessarily need to be maintained, but it's slow moving, and in order for this to happen, there has to be processes and rules. There's processes and rules. We have to take time to master and see what's going on and be able to understand these different processes and rules, not just go straight to breaking them, if at all you need to break them. But
Right.
you at least know what to expect of it. Okay, I know what to expect of it. Now I'm giving myself the choices. I can do this or I can do that. And that's going to be based upon the brother spoke of values. It's based upon our values. And we don't have to we don't have to waffle on anything. Okay, we're making this decision. Brother, I'm making a decision. Okay, this is the decision you're making. Okay, this is based on your value. Okay, it's based on your value. Okay, cool. Now we can keep it moving, as opposed to just, I'm telling you, you look at some of these systems, you look up and you're like, what? It's this huge mountain, right? But if you already know there's a mountain, you're already going to become prepared for the mountain. All right, well, I got my equipment, because you're going to have to scale the wall. But imagine scaling the wall with the proper tools
Tools. Ah,
versus
your
attempting to
hand.
scale it without,
Yeah.
and not letting it crush you. Like, what's the better chances that you have, right? And then we get to work on our disposition as we do these different things, which is I'm just on that journey of disposition. I told a brother the other day, I said, Beethoven. I was like, man, I'm pretty good at being obedient. Most High say get something done, I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I know I'm gonna do it. But then my submission, my posture, I'm like, ugh, you know. But now I get a chance to go through and just be grateful that I've been assigned this to do this, right? So if I'm grateful and I'm joyous in it, now that posture, that submission is something totally different. But we do give a lot. All right, brother, I'm done.
We've been blessed, man. Good session as always. Definitely want to say appreciate all those that have
Yeah, we
spoken out, all those that chimed in. Dr. Terrell, uh, only know Eli. That's
oh,
Mike's.
shouts out to Elijah.
Yeah, that's his son. Jumped in at the very, came in at towards the end. ATX coach, Usher. Renee too. craftline_home services, evangelist _Moses00. Appreciate all of you all and the many others that came through other channels. We track as many as we possibly can to give you the shout outs whenever they come through, if possible. Sometimes the conversation is so deep that it's hard for us to even do that. But we just want you to know that we appreciate you. We thank you for being here with us during this course of period of time. And we're asking you, you want to hear some more types of conversations, put it out there. Let us know what you're thinking about. It's Sawani, Joanna, thank you for jumping in as we close out. We appreciate you. Yeah, let us know what you want to hear about, what you want us to talk about. We definitely encourage the engagement. It helps us out a whole lot.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate y'all. Next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll see you. Love you.
Peace.
Peace.